I'm Aria.
I'm Axial.
And this is the Axial and Aria Show.
What's up, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and anybody else? I'm Axial.
I'm Aria.
Welcome back to the long-awaited. I know you guys are so excited and so anxious for this AA show, where we still need therapy, and a lot has happened since our part 2 of the Halloween video that I definitely didn't post in January. But it's fine. Don't clown me, okay? Don't talk to me about it. I don't want to hear about it. There's a lot that was happening, okay? Okay.
We got busy.
Yeah. Well, busy, sick,
Life happened.
busy, life, work, YouTube being a bitch, and I don't give a shit if they want to yell at me about it. YouTube was being an asshole. So I was like, okay, I guess I won't post this stupid video, but whatever. So do you want to start breakaway with, because this is really just going to be like a just chatting one. We don't have a special topic, mainly because due to the busyness, I didn't do any research on one of the true crime topics because, spoiler alert, that's kind of where we're looking to go with our next episode. But with everything going on, that just became like the last thing on my mind. So if you have any like true crime like stories you want to hear about that you feel don't get talked about, let me know.
Hit us up, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah.
Do we have our email address up?
No.
Oh, alrighty.
Listen, I appreciate multiple forms of communication, but I'm not giving anybody the email.
Makes sense. All right. Okay. Well, after the last episode,
It's a good picture.
Not really much happened. Well, I cut my hair because last episode was obviously longer.
Obviously.
I did it. And though Gabe didn't think I would.
Listen, you just out of the blue were like, hey, guess what? I'm gonna chop all my hair off. My first thought is definitely not gonna be they're gonna chop all their hair off.
And I did it. But the holidays are pretty okay. Nothing too major.
No.
And then New Year's Eve hit. So on New Year's Eve, I started feeling sick, meaning I felt feverish. I didn't have a fever, but I did feel warm. I was starting to lose my voice. My voice was very hoarse. And I had a cough going on. And did I already say I had a sore throat?
No.
No, I had a sore throat. And over that weekend, I was like, okay, well, maybe hopefully it's just me and yeah, it's probably just a head cold or something, or me just randomly losing my voice, because it wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. So on Monday the 3rd, I was supposed to go back to work, but I was like, let me not do that. So when I got a COVID test. Bitch comes back positive. So I've been quarantining since then. My family, though, they don't like to leave me alone. They like to bother me.
Because I don't believe that you're actually sick.
Yeah, they don't believe it. And I'm just like, well, like I told you guys in our group chat, I'm not falling over sick because my vaccines are doing their job. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is.
Joys of life.
Joys of life. That's pretty much all that's happened. I'm blaming these two people that decided to go into my job knowing they've been in close proximity with people that have had COVID or that were currently going through COVID or themselves were positive for COVID, but they were like, I'm okay. There's this one girl who went into the clinic and my coworker checked her in and everything.
Patty just
What?
dropped something. I just heard her faint ow. It was just funny. Anyway.
So this girl comes in, my coworker checks her in and everything. And so we asked just basic like COVID screening questions and all that. And the girl responded no to everything. And we're like, all right, cool, whatever. She sat down. We let the doctor know that she was there and everything. Doctor calls her back. Maybe like 10 minutes later, the doctor comes up and she's like, hey, did you guys ask her the COVID screening questions? And I was like, yeah, Lisa asked her. And she's like, okay, because she's telling me that nobody did. And I was like, what? We told her, we asked her, she asked her. And I'm not just saying that she asked her because she's my coworker and I like her. She like legitimately asked her. I heard her. And she's like, okay, well then she's lying to me. I'm like, well, obviously. And
clearly.
So that was that. Doctor went back. Patient goes out. She looked pissed. I was like, not my problem. It is what it is. That's your fault. Whatever. Didn't think much of it. A few days later, she calls back, demands to speak to the doctor. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll get you her MA, but like not her directly. Whatever. I patch her through. MA comes up after, maybe like 30 minutes after. And she's like, yeah, she tested positive for COVID. And I'm like, she tested positive for COVID and she walked into our clinic like that. The mind of some people. So that was that. And then there's this other guy. He had an appointment. And I asked him the questions. And one of the questions is, have you been in contact with anybody with COVID or whatever? And he was like, yeah, my mom. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, my mom tested positive for COVID, and like we've been around her, but we don't feel bad. And I'm like, what? No, that's not how this works.
I just don't understand why people like just like they still, after going on 3 years now, just don't get it. Like, this started in 2019. I get like it wasn't really like big in the US yet, like as bad.
But
like it was
thing.
here in the US in 2019. I know because I had COVID. Like it spread like wildfire in my office. And then it was getting really bad. And then in March, we got sent home to work from home. 2 years later, I'm still working from home. But like, I don't understand people that are just like, oh, like it's fine. And I'm like, dude, we are literally living in the modern version of like the plague. Like you do realize that, like, I don't get the audacity of people. I don't understand like people that are just like, it's fine or it's fake. And I'm like, so all the people that have died or the people who are dealing with like post-COVID like disabilities, they just aren't real people. Like what?
They just decided to die.
Yeah, they're just like,
They
oh,
just
COVID's
decided to die.
happening. I'm done with life. Like I'm gonna die and pretend I had COVID. Like what? It's just I don't get people. I don't understand people. I just don't. It doesn't, like, I won't lie. Like I don't like the human race. And, I'm not going to say something stupid like Vanessa Hudgens, but like, there comes a time in life where you have to think, like, even if you don't believe in like higher powers, or if you do and everything, like, things happen for a reason, not to like dispute the fact that it's horrible, it's traumatic. People are going through a lot. There's a lot of hardship that has come out of this and everything, but like, in my personal viewpoint, and this is technically backed up by science, the earth has its ways to do something about negative things affecting the earth. Like, you can exclude all of like the asteroid strikes that cause like the dinosaurs to die and like all that stuff, because that's outside of earth. But like, the earth went through many, many, many catastrophic genocidal events that killed off plant life, animal life, and at some times human life to change. This is just another one, because it's not like, even if it were to come out like, oh yeah, like the virus was manufactured in a lab and it got released to the world kind of thing by accident, there's still, you can't just like pull something out of your ass and be like, here's a deadly disease. Like, that has to come from something somewhere. And 90% of those somethings that come from somewhere are from the earth. And if you think about it, like, the earth is volatile. The earth can do whatever it wants to do. We keep pumping it full of poison and being like, whatever happens, happens. It's not that
And
big
this
of a
is the
deal.
result.
And then people are like, I just don't understand why all of these natural disasters and catastrophic events and viruses and the plague are happening. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm like, you do realize the earth is a living being. It's just not sentient that we are aware of, right? Like, it's not just like, whoop-de-doo, we're on a rock.
It's not like the Transformers movie.
Yeah, right?
Where they made Earth like a robot, a freaking transformer. Earth was a fucking transformer.
Yeah, it's not like that. But like, you also have to
Good
think
movie.
too, like, you don't know, like, I was talking to one of my coworkers. This is totally off topic from anything, but whatever, it's fine. I was talking to one of my coworkers because they were talking about like wanting to go back to the beach. And I was like, hell no, I will not go to the beach. I will not get in the water. Like, negative 5,000, not happening. And they were just like, oh, but it's like so much fun. Like, you just have to like, waist deep max. And I'm like, no, you're not understanding. It has nothing to do with like, I'm scared of water. Like, I'm not great at swimming, so I'm scared something's going to happen. Or like, I don't like people and there's always people at the beach. Like, it has nothing to do with like those things that are like our normal, like why people don't like the beach or the ocean. My problem is that we've explored more of space than something we share the world with. And I get it, like, everybody's like, oh, we just don't have the technology to withstand the pressure and like dicks coming out of my mouth of excuses as to why. But I'm like, wouldn't it be a situation that, not, I know space doesn't have gravity. It's a vacuum. There's nothing in space technically, like when it comes to like issues to potentially like, crush a spaceship and everything when it comes to like force. But like, wouldn't you be able to apply similar principles of like going to space and going into the ocean? Like, I don't understand the obsession with going to space. Hello, Patricia. Did you drop something in the shower? Yeah. Okay, because literally Alondra was talking and then all I ever heard was, ow.
I got my shampoo on my foot.
Ow.
Okay.
I was just like, oh, thanks for that little anecdote for our podcast. Um, But like, I don't know. Like, I don't get the obsession of going to space. Like, I don't understand. Like, I get it. I would love to go to space. Like, if I had the money to like throw away like Elon Musk because my dick is small, like I would be all about it. Like, like I have nothing else going for me. I had a child that I named a stupid name because I just keyboard smashed at the hospital. And my girlfriend literally broke up with me like a couple months later after having said child. But like, whatever. Like, I don't have anything going for me. I'm Elon Musk. Like, I have a car company, but like, fuck that. Like, I don't understand his obsession with wanting to go to space. I don't understand the billionaires and their like Cold War esque, like, who's gonna get to space first? And like, we're gonna live in space. And I'm like, please do get the hell out of here. Like, I don't want you here anymore. Like, go to space and don't come back. Like, get out. Like, first off, fuck the billionaires because you're unnecessary to the world, but whatever. But like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand like the draw of space unless you're working for NASA, because that makes sense because they're actually, I don't know, doing work. Crazy idea, but they're actually learning things, but they're not like, I need to go to space because I have a tiny dick. And I'm like, go to the ocean. Use your obscene amount of disposable wealth that will never be disposed of before the heat death of the sun and go into the ocean. Find out what is in the ocean. There are so many. This is like a whole long thing. I went on a total tangent about space. Back to the ocean issue. There's a whole world that we don't know about right outside our doors. Obviously not in Arizona because we're not close enough, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yes, I know what you mean.
there's countries and small populations, and there's we have states and things that are on like their existence is surrounded by water. We have advanced technology, we have all of this stuff and accessibility, and I get it, like if you're trying to make the argument like we've already polluted the oceans enough, like we should not be in the oceans, but like first off, clean up the fucking oceans. But like I don't understand like why nobody wants to go into the ocean
Can you
to see
imagine
what's in the ocean.
5 years raid the ocean?
That's my other thing too, because I get like we can take into like some of the lore of like sea monsters and everything and like all that stuff. But if you also have to think about it too, like there's scientific proof that there's animals that are in the ocean that look just like fucked up. Like, take the blobfish. It's pretty deep into the ocean. But when you pull it out of the water and like reverse pressure it like looks terrifying. And there's a lot of animals that look fucked up that are in the ocean that are like, like that shit's scary, or they're massive. Like there's some animals, or I guess sea life, because I think fish are different than animals, but whatever. Well, I don't know. I don't remember science. I didn't pay attention in class because I hated my teachers. But anyway, there's sea life that's like down in the bottom of the ocean that like it's like one of those like reverse like pressure things that they're like bigger than needed to be, if I remember correctly. And obviously correct me if I'm wrong, somebody, if they're like, oh, I'm a marine biologist, I just happened to come across this. But like there's like so much shit in the ocean, and like I know like Megalodon's a movie and like but there's some truth into some of those like scientific like things that they were talking about when it's a possibility that there are sea animals that are in the ocean at the depths of the ocean where we can't reach, or like that layer that we think that's the bottom of the ocean, but in really it's just the volcanic gases that are releasing it, and that's a completely different fucking culture, or like it's a time capsule kind of thing where like that is protected. Whatever is at the bottom, we don't know how deep our ocean is. We have guesstimations based off of like the Marianas Trench and like underwater caverns, things like that, but we don't know how deep our oceans go. We have no concept of the possibility of there being sea monsters. There is a very real possibility that there is so much life, other than what we are aware of at the bottom of the ocean, because our concept of the bottom of the ocean is completely wrong, because it can go so much deeper than we ever think it could go. For all we know, because I know there's a lot of, or at least what I've looked into, there's some speculation that there is we have like the crust, the mantle, the whatever the fuck, and then the core of the earth. But a lot of people are like, there's, we have dug deep, but there's certain limits that we've dug into on land that we can't reach because it gets too hot. But there's some speculation of people thinking like, what if it's a possibility that our judgment of where these layers are is actually completely wrong, and then we have like a situation where like a lot of people think like the core of the earth is massive, because the earth is massive, so logically for the magnetic fields and everything to work, like you would think like it has to be a decently sized like stabilizing point kind of thing. But what if in the reality everything is so much bigger than we think it is, or in that case the core of the earth is smaller than we think it is, and you have a situation like Journey to the Center of the Earth where you fucking go into the ocean and then all of a sudden you're falling into air because there's gigantic caverns and caves and all of these creatures that survived whatever catastrophic event, or there's a whole different world that's cut off from ours because it goes so deep that we physically as humans can't reach it with our technology. But like what I just want to know what's there. And that is, long story short, too long don't read. I will not go into the ocean until
Like,
somebody figures that
listen.
shit out. Right? too long to listen. Sorry guys. I tend to rant about this. I ranted to Patty for like 45 minutes about all the different possibilities of a zombie apocalypse and the different ways it could possibly happen and what to look out for other than just the undead. Because everybody's like, oh, I just have a bunker and I'll be fine. I'm like, you do realize there's like 18 different ways that a virus can be transmitted, right? It's not just like, oh, I got bit and now I'm suddenly a zombie. Like, mushrooms are a thing. If you have mushroom or spore-based bacteria that turns people into zombies, your fucking bunker isn't gonna do shit, mate. Like, that's a plant. You're basically being overrun by plants at that point that used to be humans. And plants are so much smarter than humans. We just have the ability of thumbs and speaking. Like, come on, bro. But like I literally spent like 30 to 45 minutes just like, this is what it could be. This is what it could be. These are all my plans. Like, if this were to happen, this is like the best way to go about it. And she was just like, okay. That's great.
I feel
And
like
I was
we
just
just have to remember that we are temporary guests on this planet.
oh
We're
yeah,
not eternal.
we're an unfortunate side effect of life. That is the best way to explain like where we are. And like I won't lie, like I'm definitely happy that I'm alive. At least now in my life, I'm happy that I'm alive.
Same.
But like, like we were not meant to exist. Even if you believe in a higher power, which like I personally don't, but I know you do, but like, anybody that's listening to this or watching this, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, you believe in God, you're stupid. But like scientifically, whether you believe in a God or gods or a higher power or, Sky Daddy or whatever you want to go off of, at the end of the day, scientifically, the fact that we exist is not, it shouldn't have happened the way that it happened, because there was so much volatile everything around us that the fact that we were able to not only evolve but survive off the land, learn and create society, create some of the buildings that we were able to create back when we didn't have anything but rocks and metals, and that was even like bare minimum because we were just learning how any of that worked.
This reminds me of, so I used to go to church when I was younger, like in my teen years or whatever, my formative years, and I am forever, forever, forever resentful about that.
Forever scarred.
Honestly. But I remember
Religious
there was
trauma.
we'll get to that one day.
Eventually. when you're not
Eventually.
sick. We'll just listen to Gabe rant about science for this entire podcast. Hey guys, this is just a catching up. Here's Gabe going off about the way that the world works because he's mad about COVID deniers. That's how this started. And now I'm going off on like a theological rant now.
It's
God
all right.
damn it.
But
This is
so
why 7 people watch us. 3 of which are ourselves.
honestly. So I remember there was like this one time we were in Bible study, and this was like a persistent question that like the people that I knew, like the youth group and I that we had, because how do you explain in a religious standpoint the existence of the dinosaurs, the existence of the pyramids being built by just regular simple human beings like you and I. And
well, regular simple human beings that don't have access to any of the things that keep us alive to this day. They, like there is no, and I get exactly where you're coming from, and I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but like thought bubble, like, again, if you believe in religion and if you think that like taking out the pyramids, taking out, the Incan pyramids and anything that was built like Stonehenge, anything that was built by humans in a prehistoric era, if you take all of that out and you're like, they just had the tools at the time and they just managed to do it because let's be honest, the Egyptians, the Incans, they had a way more advanced math than they probably should. Where they fucking got that, I don't fucking know because I can't add 2 + 2 without a calculator. But, like religiously, if you're trying to think about, I know what the answer is. I was being facetious, but thank you. But, if you think about it, like there's so much about I want to say, let's say 18th century, pre-18th century. There's so much that we have found or discovered by people who have done things that make absolutely no sense. And it just physically like I know people have tried to recreate the Stonehenge and like tried to like put them back at that, like what this time period this was built. Can we do this as people, like scientists and historians can we do this knowing what we know with like the mathematics and how things are done, or like the Easter Island heads, like they have tried to recreate some of these monuments. Obviously they're not building a fucking more pyramids of Giza, but like they're the smaller scale things like that, like the statues and things. They're like trying to recreate, like, is this possible knowing what we know in the 20th 21st century? Can we do this? And every time it's always come up, it's physically impossible, even with the mathematical skills, even with knowing how, we know how things function, how things work, using prehistoric tools and things like that. Even still, like people have said, like it's literally impossible that they put those stones in the way that they did in a perfect circle, no less, without the ability of seeing above them, because all of them are taller than people at that time. They put it, a perfect fucking circle. Like people today can't draw perfect circles, and they have tools that can help them draw perfect circles. I mean, fuck, we've got coasters that are perfect circles. Like that's a machine made circle. People cannot do this kind of thing, like how is it possible? And then if you want to throw in like the religious aspect of it, like, well, a higher being gave them the ability to do this, or like, if you want to think like with like Moses with his parting the waters and everything, like that was a gift from a higher power that was allowing him to do that so that he could save people and everything. Like sure, there's that possibility, but there's no proof of this. There's no, it's just there's so many unknowns, and it's again like back with the ocean, like there's so much unknown. And I don't know how I would feel if like we were to actually like learn about all of this stuff and like oh, there actually is like higher beings in the universe kind of thing, like that have been able to help humans do all this. I don't know how I would feel.
I feel like if we were ever to get to a point where we were to find out
Mhm.
exactly what happened, it'd be just too much.
It would be like the Indiana Jones lady, or in the like the last one with the crystal skull, where she's like, I want to know everything, and then she
And
like
she
burns up.
exactly, I feel like it would be exactly like that. Like
There's
you would
there's
just
there's so much history to the world that I want to know everything, like if there is an afterlife where like you can do, like learn that, like learn everything, because obviously you're already dead, so how much dead can you get? But like if you were able to do that and like go back in time, or like where's Doctor Who when I need him? Like, sir, I need you to take me back to all these time periods. Like I need to know like this shit.
take me back to the beginning, like
Like
the very
like
beginning.
exactly, like I need, like I am so, because I'm a huge history buff, and like some history sometimes dabbles into science, and like I like science, but there's too much math in it, and I'm math illiterate, so like that's not great. But like there's just so much that like we just don't know, and then you have, and bring it full circle, and then you have people who think that they know things because I'm a white American and therefore I have every knowledge of the world, that they're like, there's no way this, there's no way that, or like, there's microchips on the vaccines. I'm like, first off, do you know how big a microchip is? Like, just because it's called a microchip doesn't mean it's small enough to go into the vaccine needle. There would be no way that a microchip could be small enough to function with the ability of what it needs to do to go into a vaccine needle. And also, crazy thing, tracking chips like that have to be injected into your muscle where there's electricity. They don't even go deep enough to get to your muscle. Just because your muscle is sore is not because, they stuck you with a needle long enough to get into your muscle. It's because your body is attacking the virus. Like that's why your arm hurts. But they're like, no, there's microchips. And I'm like, have you never seen a dog get chipped? Like they practically use a basting needle. Like I'm sure you've basted a
Huge.
turkey before. They're massive to get into the muscle because the muscle is very strong and they have to pierce it in a specific way. And then they inject a microchip that's like this big that runs off of the electricity in the muscle to work. So like if scientists magically found a way to make a microchip small enough that it can lay in your skin, like
Your dermis.
yeah, your dermis. I was gonna call it the epidermis, but that's lower.
Oh.
If they were able to find a way that they can get a microchip that could work without electricity that lays in your dermis, that's small enough to go into that size of a gauge needle. I want to say it's like 12 or 18, because it's similar size to the needles that I have to use for my testosterone injections. But those things are tiny. Like, if we were able to do this, like scientifically, like, I feel like we would have heard about this a long time ago, because first off, why would any scientist in the world be like, I created this thing to track human beings? Not that there's phones that people carry every single day that already do that for them. Like, make it make sense.
Like you don't
Y'all have
they don't
Alexas and
the
shit.
government doesn't need a microchip in your body. Like have
You
nobody heard
carry
of the
a
NSA?
Yeah, first off, the NSA is tracking everything, even though they claim to not be, because Obama said that they're not allowed to do it anymore. That's bullshit. And the NSA can come fight me. I don't really give a shit. We all know that they're
I cut this
all
podcast right now.
right. The podcast just cuts off. You just hear banging. But we all know the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, they're all tracking everything that we look up, everything that we do, everywhere we're going. We know this. This is not something that's not aware of. So why would they develop technology to do the same thing they're already doing with people who purchase phones, who use debit cards, who have social security numbers that
It's
track every
anti-productive.
step, why would they need to put a microchip in you? Like, what are you doing that would require that? You know, everybody's like if you want to take about like people, anti-government people, like militias and things like that, they're like, you know, the government's, I need all my guns because the government's going to come after me. I'm like, first off, the government doesn't give two shits about you. Second off, they already know everything you're doing. Like, you think you're so smart, you're off the grid. Blah. I believe me, they know everything. Like, you're dumb if you think that the government doesn't know everything that you're doing. They, you know, they're tracking all of that shit. The thing is, though, the flip side is just because the government's tracking everything and is aware of everything doesn't mean that they give a shit enough to do anything about that. Because, you know, you can have the argument, well, if the government knows everything, why is there still crime? Why are people able to still commit terrorist acts? Why is sex trafficking a thing? Why is the drug trade still a thing?
Because they benefit from it.
It makes them money. Like, are you stupid? Like, first off, you know, let's take into, again, I will preface this with, I understand it's a fictional movie, but Sicario, that movie is legitimately about the US government funding cartel wars so that they can come out on top and control the drug trade. That's true. The US government does this. It's been documented. We do this as the US. And then they flip side, oh, the war on drugs, we're cracking down on, you know, illegal immigrants at the border. At the same time, though, they are funding cartels, they're funding the drug trade, they're funding coyotes, they're doing all of this so that they can still have, you know, they want to have their hands in all of the different cookie jars so that if there's ever a point where one of the cookie jars doesn't make them profit anymore, they can flip side and be like, oh, we've been working on destroying this. And, you know, we were able to do this now while still having all of their hands in the other cookie jars that are things that they make illegal. It's the same with human trafficking. It's the same with sex trafficking. It's the same with anything that has to do with anything illegal. If they can make a profit off of it and claim as propaganda that they are against this, they will do it. That's how this country was built and is still being maintained. America, this has really gotten way off topic, but it's fine. I'm in a mood today.
Just getting it all out there.
Yeah, just throw it all out there. One day I'll be arrested by the FBI, you know, whatever. I don't give a shit. The FBI can suck my asshole. But you know, we're in a world where our own country is, hey, look over here, look over here. We're gonna fucking blow up some innocent people back here. But look over here, guys. That was the entire Trump administration. Trump says something stupid. They're killing people over here. Trump does something stupid. All of the news media is talking about it, even though, you know, fake news. They're doing something illegal or bad over here. That is legitimately the entire 4 years of his presidency. You want to know why I know that? Because there were people that were like, hey, when Trump did this on this date at this time, the American military was doing this in a Middle Eastern country at the same time, but this is happening over here. And that's drawing all of news coverage because, you know, everybody doesn't like what Trump is saying. And all the Democrats who are in on it, by the way, because fuck both parties, are like, oh, let's all be up in arms against Trump. But we're just going to pretend that we didn't just bomb a village of women and children for no fucking reason except to, you know, for funsies, because that's all that we do, because we're defending innocent people from Al Qaeda and the Taliban and ISIS.
Wasn't it last year at the beginning of the year when he almost calls World War III or some shit? Or was it 2020?
Are you talking about the insurgents on the Capitol or
No,
the Korean stuff?
No. It was something in the Middle East.
There was like talks of him causing World War III like 4 different times during his presidency, because he would get buddy with people and then start shit talking them. and then be like, oh my God, how do they know that I was doing this? This is a shithole country. They don't have
It sounds
internet.
like
And I'm like,
somebody we know.
right. But like, I think, and I will say, like, 0.5%, I'm happy where I live. It will always have a possibility of being worse. I could be in a culture that I get stoned to death because of who I am, or I live in a country where being LGBT is illegal, or I mean, well, it's fake legal here, but whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But I could live in a world where my day to day is so much worse than everything, and I do respect the fact that I have a lot of the freedom that I do, and I won't dispute. There's a lot of soldiers that died for that freedom, even if the orders that they were given were unfair and very anti-human. I won't dispute that, like my dad appreciate that he, fought for his country and everything because he's the reason that I'm able to be who I am. Same with my grandfather and anybody that I know who was in the military or anybody who was a part of a war that we shouldn't have been a part of, but at the time that was the thing to do because if you weren't, you were looked as like a traitor to the country and everything. I'm not going to argue with that. A lot of our 95% of our soldiers deserve that respect because a lot of them are coerced into joining the military because they're from poor families or they think they're doing the right thing and then realize that they're not doing it because there's a lot of veterans that have talked about like political things that were against the military that they're like this isn't against the military, like I lost my leg so that you can say this, like that's your right kind of thing. And like a lot of people have come out and been like, this is legitimately what I fought for, or like, someone died for kind of thing. Like, there's nothing against the military in your comments kind of thing. Cause there's a lot of Karens that like to be like, yeah, you're doing this against the military. And it's like, you're fucking stupid. But like, I'm not going to dispute that I have a lot of privilege, and I'm far better off. But just because I am conscious of the privilege I have does not mean that I should be ignorant to the fact that our country is horrible. We are the worst country when it comes to a lot of things because we like to pretend that we're this first world nation. But in all honesty, we're on the level of a lot of third world nations. We just have a Gucci belt to show off that we can pretend like, oh, we're so great, we have so much like, personifying America. America is so egotistical that they refuse to like look in itself because they'd rather fix the rest of the world than fix itself. And, I do understand that at like face value, like, you want to make allies with people and, help people out. But then you also have to think like we did a lot of fixing to other countries that we shouldn't have been involved with and then got screwed over by those countries because they basically were like, here's all this great stuff. We're going to help you. Oh, fuck you kind of thing. Take it away. And then 9/11 happens. And then they're like, I just don't understand why they would do something like that to us. I'm like, I don't know, maybe because you westernize an entire culture. And then when they said, hey, we need help because these people are causing us issues, you went, that's not my problem and left. I don't know. Crazy concept. I'd be a little bit pissed too. But, you have the fact that America is known for political assassinations, especially in South America. You have the fact that we keep getting involved in wars that we shouldn't be involved in. We've invaded countries that we
Your
shouldn't have
camera
invaded.
unfocused for a moment
Oh,
and
did it?
just refocused.
It's unfocused. I'm just all deranged. But you have all of this stuff that we know that's been released to the general public about all of this. And then you want, the government's like, we're not allowed to talk about this because it puts America in a bad light. And I'm like, it should be in a bad light, though. We have yet to do something that's good. There has yet to be something that we have done that didn't have
horrible
stipulations.
consequences.
Well, I was gonna say like because there are some good things, like freeing the slaves was good, but that came with stipulations. There is yet to be something that we have done as a country or as a government that was against marginalized people or that was humanitarian or anything like that that didn't have stipulations, that didn't benefit us, that didn't, give us some reason to lord over the rest of the world as to like how much better we are. There's not a single thing in history that America has done that didn't do any of those three things. We don't do anything as a country for the good of the people, even though like that's legitimately like a part of our like rules and bylaws and constitution and like Declaration of Independence and all that shit. Like we're doing this for the benefit of everybody. No, us seceding from England was for the benefit of the rich, not anybody else, because they were like, I don't want to pay all this money anymore because it's so hard for me to do that. We're going to make our own country. That wasn't because they were like, I'm tired of being stepped on by the bigger man. Like it was legitimately because I don't want to pay taxes, which we just decided to carry on if you have wealth now because, fuck everybody else. But there's nothing in the world that we have done. I mean, in the country, not in the world, but technically same. There's nothing that we've done that's been beneficial at all because it's beneficial, not because there's gain. We live in a world, in a country, because apparently America is its own world according to everybody fucking else, except, people who don't have their heads up their asses, that truly believe that we live in a country that's just looking out for the little man. And I'm like, where has there been ever a situation where we've gotten involved with something where they're just looking out for the middleman? Because every time we've gone into a country to assist, it's because it benefited us. We didn't get involved in World War II until Pearl Harbor. The war had already been going on for a considerable amount of time at that point. But then Pearl Harbor happened, and at that point, defeating Hitler was going to make us look better. We had no issue with anything that was happening in World War II. We were like, Jewish people can go fuck themselves as a country. We had no concern, but the second they stepped on our toes, suddenly the Holocaust is bad. I don't understand like this perception that like America is just so amazing. Because then you have where we are now, again, going back full circle. You have a population of people who believe that America can do no wrong, except at the same time, America can do so much wrong because they're forcing me to get a vaccination, that live in this like bubble of like, this is a utopia and, there's nothing bad in this world and I'm entitled to everything, that refuse to see anything outside of their rose-tinted glasses and then get mad when bad things happen as a result of the truth of the world. And I'm just like, I don't understand. It boggles me so much. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't. It just, like, I think I would be more understanding if we lived in a time period where we didn't know what we did, like, bubonic plague era, like people just had no fucking clue about anything. So you couldn't be mad at people doing stupid shit because nobody knew what the right answer was.
Everybody
But
was just guessing.
yeah, but that's not what we do. Like everybody's like, oh, history repeats itself, so we should learn about history. And I'm like, we're literally doing what happened in the fucking bubonic plague. Like that is literally what we're doing. Except the only difference is that we have some technology that's kind of saving people's lives, but we're all just like, I don't know, even though scientists have been like, this is how to stop this. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. That affects my ability to have, my right to freedom. And I'm like, you're not going to have freedom for much longer when you're dead. So, like, I don't know, live because, for yourself, so you can have this freedom that you're being stolen from of, which you aren't, but whatever, or be dead and have no freedom whatsoever. Like, you have two choices here. Even if you're going to be selfish and, take care of yourself and get vaccinated only for yourself so that you could live longer and not be like some of the people that are like, do it for everybody else so that you can protect everybody, because that's a good human, basic, normal person thing. If you're going to do it for yourself and be selfish, your choices are be selfish and do it or die. Like, I don't get why they think there's a third option. Like, okay, cool. Anyway.
So back to your coworker who wanted to go back to the beach.
I mean, I was just going to talk about the ocean. That was literally the only reason I brought that up. That's it. And somehow I went into politics because I'm so good at going into politics. You can give me any topic, and you can give me the randomest, like least political topic, and I'm probably
cheese, and somehow you'd go into politics. Somehow, some way we'd find a way.
Cheese has a lot of French governmental influence, so there's a lot of politics about cheese. We can go back to the beheadings and shit like that.
Listen, you go.
Cheese is a rich person thing, cheese is disgusting, okay? Cheese is nasty. Unless it's in a burrito or on tacos or in a burger or mac and cheese, cheese is gross. Are you seriously telling me you just eat cheese by itself?
Sometimes.
What the fuck is wrong with you? It's literal. It's literal mold.
Listen, to each their own.
No, there is no to each their own.
Yes, there is.
Cheese is legitimately, I'm not kidding. Hopefully Patty's not paying attention to this, but because I say a lot of things, she's like, don't ruin that food item for me. Cheese is legitimately rotting milk with mold. That's what it is. You're eating something that smells and tastes like feet, that's decaying. You literally, if you took a bottle or a jug of milk that's spoiled and then you added some like spice to it, you would get cheese. That's cheese. It's spoiled milk.
Okay.
You're a disgusting person, okay? That's the end of this. It just ends the podcast here. We're no longer friends. The title of this is Gabe Can Make Anything into Politics and Cheese Hate. That's literally what I'm going to title it. Cheese Hate plus tell Gabe anything and he can turn it into a political conversation. The tags on this video are going to be so fucking funny. We've got COVID. We've got
ocean.
The ocean. We've got space. We've got astronomy. We've got cheese. We've got, history, dinosaurs, religion.
Speaking of which, going back to that just a little bit.
Religion?
No, to
or
the
dinosaurs.
The dinosaur period and religion. The three things, essentially.
Technically.
So the
I like how I said too, this will be a short one. It's just catching up. Literally episode 6, just catching up. JK, Gabe goes on a 30-minute tangent again. God damn it. I'm going to talk
Oh,
about the zombie stuff next episode. Okay. So if you guys want to listen to
yes.
me rant about, I will make a PowerPoint to like share my screen for you. So please let me know if you want to know all of the ways to survive a zombie apocalypse.
I'm here for it. No, but like we never ever ever got a proper answer out of that woman. Like
I'm not shocked though.
there was no explanation, and I'm like, I'm like, were there giants? Were there like, was there like a subspecies of humans that were just like meta human or whatever, that were just like doing all the work or whatever, you know?
Exactly. That's like, going back to the thing about the oceans too. Like, there's a lot of theories that there are things at the bottom of the ocean that are huge because of the pressure. Because if they were small, they would basically die. So there's a lot of theories that are like, most of like sea creatures that are more closer to the bottom of the ocean are massive. You have the giant squid that people have found like washed up on shore that are
The colossal
huge.
squid or
Like,
whatever.
yeah, like these, there are animals that are massive, and we have no idea that, like, going back to the movie The Megalodon, because again, I know it's a movie and it's all just fake, but there is a very real possibility that because of, and I can't remember which era it's called, but there was a time period where bugs and animals and because the overabundance of oxygen in the air were ginormous. They were just massive.
There's
And
scientific evidence about
yeah,
that.
there's scientific evidence, and there's a very likely possibility that, I'm not going as far as like Journey to the Center of the Earth. There is no core to the Earth. It's just an empty cavern where all of this stuff lives. But there's a very real possibility that because legitimately only the things that really died were things that were on land, that when that meteor struck and hit those dinosaurs, there's a possibility that there is marine life that because of that catastrophic event, it caused a separation layer that protected those animals underneath it and everything, and they live in that, like, I think it's like, I think it starts with a J. I keep thinking of Jurassic Park, but that's not what one of the like eras of the dinosaurs and where the bugs are really big. I don't remember what it's called.
The only ones I know are Jurassic and Crustaceous. That's it. I know
I
there's
think
another one.
it's Crustaceous Period, I want to say, but don't quote me on that. I again didn't really pay attention in science because my science teachers pissed me off. But there's a very real possibility that we have just chunks of land that, or in the sea that we don't know of, that can be completely devoid of water, because we've found caves like that where it's in the middle of the ocean but there's no water touching it or anything. There's a very real possibility that there is a whole nother world within a whole nother world, because the ocean is a completely different world to us, that has creatures that shouldn't be alive anymore because they should have died billions of years ago.
Keyword should have.
Exactly. And fuck, humans should have died billions of years ago too, but we're not going to talk about that because God had a plan for us. But, not to be rude to religious people,
No.
but just sometimes that quote makes me feral. But
Tell
like,
me about it.
I just like, I understand where they're coming from and I get it because, I'm not religious, but I do follow a religion. But my religion that I follow is based on a time period where asking questions was okay and getting answers was okay. And then, the Crusades started happening and paganism was eradicated because it was the devil. But again, we'll have a whole episode about that too. But, there's so many questions that people, and I get it. I understand, like, that's not for humans to know because the higher being is the one that makes these decisions, or things like that. Like, I understand, like, you have faith in something above you that has made these choices and you're leaving it up in that person or thing's hands. I get that because sometimes it's hard to stomach these truths. I'm not going to lie, there are some things in this world that we've found out that it's just hard to stomach because you want to believe that there's no way, like, that could happen because it doesn't seem possible. Or you want to, the thing with like people talking about like serial killers, like I didn't want to believe that that person could do such a horrible thing to other people. Like I get that, but to actively, like, I guess bully's too strong of a word, but that's the only thing I can think of. But like bully curious children who don't understand why you don't know as an adult, because as kids, adults know everything. But the reason you don't know is because God said so isn't an answer, because then you're just leaving a kid with more questions, which,
Like, well, why did he say so? Like,
yeah, but not only that,
what was the idea?
typically those answers lead to those children leaving religion, because then they start, and obviously, 5-year-olds are not like, oh, I'm having an existential crisis about my religious beliefs. But like, eventually there comes a time, and this is, and I'm not saying this because I'm like, huh, this is everything. There are some people that just accept it and move on. But a lot of people who leave monotheistic religions leave
Ooh,
those religions.
nice word.
This is why I do English, not math. But they leave monotheistic religions because there's so many questions that go unanswered, and there's no one that wants to answer them, because the response is always like, it's because God said so, or we don't question God, or la 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 la. Sky Daddy is the biggest daddy and he has a huge dick and that's his point, kind of thing. But like, I don't understand why people don't get like answering those questions to people who are just curious, and that's your response. And then you're like, I don't understand why they left the church. And I'm like, I don't know, because you kept telling them they were stupid for asking questions that are legitimate questions. Crazy concept. You can be like, I don't know the answer to this because per my faith and understanding, God has created everything, and I am not the person to question God. But if you want to have a conversation, because I know like a lot of people think like, I have conversations with, not think, but their faith allows them to like pray to God and think, there are some people that believe that they do get answers in that, and everything. And I'm not, I don't pray to anybody, but I do my own
None of my
things.
prayers ever got answered.
Right. Hey, God, why did you kill the dinosaurs? My Sunday school teacher said that it's all your plan, and I don't understand. What did the dinosaurs do to you? Kind of thing. But no,
I feel like somebody out there is just like, you should have just prayed harder.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't doubt it. You didn't pray hard
Touch
enough.
my hands as tight as I can and just.
You didn't have enough faith, and that's why God ignored you. Also, another thing too, like going off of that, if prayer really works, why doesn't it work? Like, I'm never going to tell someone like, oh, like, fuck you, don't pray for me kind of thing, because I do think, it's sweet. Like if someone, you tell someone about something sad and they're like, or like, something that's concerning, or, you're anxious about, or like you're about to do something and they're like, oh, I'll pray for you kind of thing. Like I do appreciate that, like that in their mind, their prayers are going to help me achieve or accomplish or overcome something that I'm going through and everything. And like, if that's their belief, I'm not going to be like, oh, you're fucking stupid, prayers don't work and everything, because that I have no right to tell anybody what their beliefs are when it comes to things like that. The only time I have a right to tell anybody is if it's directly affecting me and causing me harm. But I don't understand the concept of how prayer, I guess maybe we should just fucking reach out to a priest and be like, hey, yo, we need some answers here. Do you want to join our Zoom call?
I promise.
Question and answers.
We'll try not to curse.
I don't give a shit. I'll wear all my witchy stuff too. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of good priests out there. I'm sure. I know there's like a bunch of like TikTok pastors or something like that are pretty chill. She's like, hey, I run a podcast and I have a lot of religious questions. Would you like to be a guest? You're not gonna get paid, but it'd be fun. But
Just send like a questionnaire, just answer it, send it back to me.
yeah, here's a 53 question questionnaire. Please answer to the best of your ability. But no, like I guess it goes back to the whole like faith thing. Like if you have faith that your prayer is going to cause a change, like that's all that matters. But I guess like with my standpoint, because I do a lot of like spells and rituals that have a cause and effect that's noticeable, I've never understood the concept of prayer, I guess, because there is no result that you can see. Because if something happens after you pray for it, 90% of the time, that is a coincidence because you can't 100% be sure, like, because I thought this happened. There is no proof of that. And I mean, I guess you can say there's technically no proof about any of my spells or rituals, but I have a direct, immediate reaction when I do them,
Mhm.
Like I know this is happening. My deities are confirming that this is happening. I know and can see with my own two eyes that me doing this has changed and caused this,
I told you they won't leave me alone.
I mean, it's every podcast at this point. I think if they actually left you alone during one of our recording sessions, it would be weird.
It'd be
And people would be
concerning.
like, did your family die?
Probably.
You want to know the best thing too is I was really like, I'll just talk about the BTS concert and that's really the most exciting thing that's happened and all that. Nope. I'll just leave the BTS concert for another episode. But oh my God. I think we should probably end it because I won't shut up. And this is going to be a long one to edit. And you're going to have a lot of fun doing this transcript.
How long has it been?
We started at 7:30. It's now 8:36. So an hour.
1 hour.
We can always break it up if we really need to, but I don't like doing that because that's more work for me.
Yeah.
And technically more work for you because you're going to have to timestamp exactly to the second when we stop it. And I don't think there's any point where we like could officially stop it.
Pause.
Yeah.
All right. We can stop it now and then we can just continue our little talk.
Yeah. We can just have like
time.
Next time I can do some research on some true crime stuff and work on my PowerPoint and just kind of talk about other stuff. I can talk about the BTS concert. Part 2 to the fake just chatting video. Gabe talks about his last couple months events. He promises not to get political and tirade. He swears. But we all know that's
no promises are being made.
That's not a promise that can be kept. Gabe doesn't have enough friends to talk to. It's only Alondra and Patty, and he can't rant as often. But yes, back to, if you really want me to, I will legitimately do a zombie apocalypse episode because I have a lot of thoughts about that. Patty can attest. But other than that, if you have any true crime stuff or any topics you specifically want to hear us talk about, because I know we do want to do a topic about religion, and then
just our personal experience.
Yeah, personal experiences. Mine more vague than Alondra's because some things I won't talk about. But
because I thought I was following the right path.
But other,
no
true crime, anything that you want to hear us talk about or hear us our opinions, because I have a lot of opinions about a lot of things. I also, if you would like a whole episode that's doesn't count as this about all my conspiracy theories, I got you because I have a lot of those.
I'm here for it.
Also, at the FBI, NSA, and CIA, Fuck you. You can't do shit to me. Freedom
Please
of
don't shut
speech,
us down.
bitch. They can't do shit. It's freedom of speech. I'm protected by the Constitution. What are they gonna do to me? Arrest me for saying that they suck? Then they're gonna have to arrest the entire fucking country. They don't have enough prison space for that shit.
We can talk about the prison system.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that too, because I have a lot of fucking opinions about that shit. We talk about fucking Jaro Pyro.
I think
not
the
even gonna say
freaking
his
prison
name right,
system
'cause he
should be
sucks ass.
illegal.
It's because
What did she say?
Fatty went, that man ruined my life. She can guest star on our Why Jarapayo fucking sucks. And then at him. I'm gonna post about it in any social media he has. I'll just tag
His
him in it.
replacement isn't any better.
He's a little bit better. I mean,
Not by
there's not. I don't think there's any political figure that will be any better. I know I said that we'll end this, but he's not as bad. He's bad, but you know, he could always be worse. That's kind of
That
my
is true.
standpoint about some, like, fuck Joe Biden, but like it could be worse. You know, that's my standpoint on anyone in politics. They're all
We
shitty
don't
human
stand our
beings.
politicians.
That's
We
because they're all
don't stand
shitty
them.
human beings that get paid off by fucking Fortune 500 companies. And then they're like, this is for the people. And I'm like, what people? The billionaires? Those aren't people. They're fucking demonic bitches. Anyway, bye, guys.
Bye.